We're good people. We really are. Authored by James Howard Kunstler. Posted to Kunstler.com 10 July 2017. The disgrace of America's putative intellectual class is nearly complete as it shoves the polity further into dysfunction and toward collapse. These are the people Nassim Taleb refers to as intellectuals yet idiots. Big questions loom over this dynamic. How did the thinking class of America sink into this slough of thoughtlessness? And why? What is motivating them? One path to understanding it can be found in this sober essay by Neil Devers, The Overton Bubble, published 2 years ago on thefutureprimeval.net. A friend of mine turned me on to it the other day. I don't know how I missed it. The title is a reference to the phenomenon known as the Overton Window. Wikipedia summarizes it as follows. The Overton Window, also known as the window of discourse, is the range of ideas the public will accept. The term is derived from its originator, Joseph P. Overton, a former vice president of the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. Devers refines the definition. The Overton window is a concept in political sociology referring to the range of acceptable opinions that can be held by respectable people. Respectable, of course, means that the subject can be integrated with the polite society. Respectability is a strong precondition on the ability to have open influence in the mainstream. This raises another question. Who exactly is in this core of respectable people who set the parameters of acceptable thought? Primarily, the mainstream media, the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, etc. Plus, the bureaucratic functionaries of the permanent government bureaucracy, aka the deep state, who make and execute policy, along with the universities which educate the respectable people, the thinking class, into the prevailing dogmas and shibboleths of the day, and finally the think tanks and foundations that pay professional experts to retell their ideas. The Overton window can be viewed as a mechanism of political control, demonizing anyone who departs from the consensus of respectable thought, and especially if they express their heresies in public speech. This has consequences. Devers explains, the trouble with the Overton window as a mechanism of political control, and with politicization of speech and thought in general, is that it causes significant collateral damage on the ability of your society to think clearly. If some thoughts are unthinkable and unspeakable, and the truth happens in some case to fall outside of polite consensus, then your ruling elite and their society will run into situations they simply can't handle. An unwise political elite is one incapable of thinking clearly about their strategic situation, acting in concert, or sticking to a plan. An insecure political elite is one which has either no sufficient mechanisms of political power short of the politicization of speech and thought, or is faced by such powerful but somehow never decisively powerful enemies that they need to permanently escalate to a state of vigorous politicization of speech and thought. We can compare this state to intellectual martial law for its structural similarity to the physical security equivalent. We're now living in that condition of intellectual martial law. The consequent degradation of thinking means that the polity can't construct a coherent consensus about what is happening to it, or devise a plan for what to do about it. This is exactly the point where the Overton window turns into an Overton bubble, as described by Devers. The bubble comprises ideas that are assumed to be self-evident, though they actually aren't, and notions that are potentially destructive of society, even suicidally so. Here is a partial list of the current dogmas and shibboleths inside today's Overton bubble. Russia hacked the election of 2016. No evidence required. Russia, Vladimir Putin in particular, is bent on destroying the USA. All immigrants, legal or illegal, have equal status before the law. National borders are inconvenient, cruel, and obsolete. Western civilization is a malign force in human history. Islam is the religion of peace, no matter how many massacres of infidels are carried out in its name. Men are a negative force in society. White men are especially negative. Brownie points given for behaviors under the rubric LGBTQ. All discussion about race problems and conflicts is necessarily racist. The hijab, head covering worn in public by some Muslim women, is a device of liberation for women. There should be a law against using the wrong personal pronoun for people who consider themselves neither men nor women, recently passed by the Canadian Parliament. A unifying common culture is unnecessary in national life. Anything goes. Colonizing Mars is a great solution to problems on Earth. That list defines the general preoccupations of the thinking classes today to the exclusion of other issues. Here is an alternative list of matters they are not generally concerned about or interested in. The energy quandary at the heart of our economic malaise. The enormous debt racked up to run society in the absence of affordable energy inputs. The dangerous interventions and manipulation in markets by unelected officials of the Federal Reserve. The extraordinary dysfunction of manipulated financial markets. The fragility of a banking system based on accounting fraud. The dysfunction and fragility of the American suburban living arrangement. The consequences of a catastrophic breakdown in the economy due to the above. The destruction of planetary ecology, threatening the continuation of the human race, and potentially all life. Now, the question of motive. Why does the thinking class in America embrace ideas that are not necessarily, and surely not self-evidently, truthful, and even self-destructive? Because this class is dangerously insecure, and perversely needs to insist on being right about its guiding dogmas and shibboleths at all costs. That is why so much of the behavior emanating from the thinking class amounts to virtue signaling. We are the good people, on the side of what's right. We really are. Of course, virtue signaling is just the new term for self-righteousness. There is also the issue of careerism. So many individuals are making a living at trafficking in, supporting, or executing policy based on these dogmas and shibboleths that they don't dare depart from the Overton bubble of permissible, received thought lest they sacrifice their status and incomes. The thinking classes are also the leaders and foot soldiers in American institutions. When they are unable or unwilling to think clearly, then you get a breakdown of authority, which leads to a breakdown of legitimacy. That's exactly where we're at today in our national politics, our ability to manage the polity. Read Neil Dever's excellent article, The Overton Bubble, at theprimeval.net.